allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, first thing, I need a motion to approve the amended agenda. All in favor? Aye. All right, we have public comments. I have a card to read here. It says, "Thank you. Peace often begins with an act of kindness. Thank you for yours. Your expressions of sympathy will always be remembered by the family of Dean Parrott." Whiteman report. I'm sorry, we have recognitions. Sorry.
So tonight's recognitions are honestly for those that are behind the scenes and do a lot of things just without anybody seeing them, but they are an integral part of our school. I would hate to see the school day without lunch or breakfast. I hate to see what our kids would be like without that, with hungry bellies. And then I know every time my computer's down, I don't feel like I can get anything done either. So both of these groups, honestly, behind the scenes, they're working to make sure that our day runs efficiently and we keep teachers and students happy and with happy bellies as well. So we would like to tonight, we'd like to recognize our food service individuals and also our technology. So when I call your name, if you will come up front and we will honor you tonight. So for food service, we have our food service director, Jamie Sager. Margie Atwater. Tracy Francis. Rebecca Cullen. Cynthia Lancaster. Taylor McDonald. Ann Peterson. Elizabeth Slothauer. Charlita Smiley. Lauren Smith. Kathy Steinman. And Marjorie Vizino. And then our technology, we have our technology director, Jeff Davis, Mike Falk, Ben Franklin, Brandon Steele, and John Steinbeck.
Yeah, so cookies. We have a cookie. You guys know what goes so great with a deli sandwich? Microchips. Oh, that was good. Oh, I did that. That was a really great joke. I'll try to remember that one. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you. Well done, sir. Thank you. Thanks, Ben.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, you guys. Thanks again. All right, we're going to Solomon to the line. Tell you what, if you hold your arms out so you can lay across the front. Jeff said you guys are kneeling on the floor. I guess tall guys back You need to be in front.
Can't see Kelly?
No.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Or you do one more. 1, 2, 3.
Now we gotta get pictures of Kane.
Tom.
Thank you, sir.
Hey.
What was your time last Saturday?
What time and what? Like golf.
You dropped in all the time.
No, I think so. Thanks, that was the first years.
Eight. Not here for a reason.
Thank you. Continue to
Well,
contribute.
Well, now you can give us your report.
Well, good evening, everybody. Glad to be back with you. So I've got a couple things to report and to pass along. So at the end of the month, we're having our global thunder exercise. So U.S. TRACCOM directed major bomber generation exercise. So you'll see our folks go into extended hours, which obviously will have some impact on childcare and especially on the home. But we're excited about that to prove what we do for our wartime mission upon the demand and the request of the president. Next piece is the we're calling it the evolution of the military spouse. We're rolling out a new program that aims at educating spouses on the workings of the military, which will include orientations on how the moving process works, special duty assignments, various leadership roles, and the ways our spouses can be more involved with the team right in the community. So as folks hear of issues with spouses or concerns with some of these recurring themes, we encourage those folks to pass that along to Diane Hunley, our SLO, so she can help us identify and get after those. Next, the base is proud to say that we've added 2 additional military family life counselors, or MFLACs, to support the base population. So that brings our total to 9, including the 2 MFLACs at the non-master school district supporting our kids, military connected kids. We have 2 in the Warrensburg School District supporting those military connected kids, and then brings our total to 3 permanent MFLACs on installation. And we've got 1 assigned to youth center and then 1 that supports kind of a personal finance counselor MFLAC in general readiness. And finally, we're proud to officially announce that we've changed Halloween at the base. So we're not celebrating at the end of the month. We're going to celebrate on Friday, the 27th of October, because of our generation exercise to keep in place. So the Boo Bash, which is our event at the youth center, kind of a trunk or treat kind of orientation for military affiliated families, and then trick or treating from 6 to 8 on the installation. Again, no federal endorsement intended, but that's when we will support trick or treating. Anybody with base access is obviously welcome to join our community. 27 October, that's Friday. So the Boo Bash is from 5 to 7. Trick or treating is officially from 6 to 8. Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween.
Thank you. We have the principal and director's reports as presented. Yes.
Dr. Ralston, could you expound a little bit on the expanding early childhood special education program?
So what we are doing is we're adding peer models into the program. So we will have typical peers who will also be in the early childhood special education program. So we'll have, our goal is to have 2 in each classroom, 2 a.m. and 2 p.m. It just serves as good role models for the students that are in there for social, emotional, behavioral things, but also for language growth. And so we have developed the criteria. We have some students identified, and we're presenting that to parents this week to see who's interested in having their child participate in that.
So the peer models are what?
They're typical peers. So they're typically developing peers who would go into our early childhood program to serve as role models for the students who are in our early childhood special education program.
Cool. Thank you.
MSBA report.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Missouri School Boards Association's Board Report for the month of October. We thank you for the opportunity to share some news and information during a few minutes of your board meeting. We begin with an update on the State Board of Education. During the past 2 months, Governor Greitens has had the unusual opportunity to make appointments to fill 4 of the 8 seats on the State Board of Education. New members include Eddie Justice from Poplar Bluff, Claudia Grime of Kansas City, and Doug Russell of Lebanon. Governor Greitens withdrew the nomination of Melissa Gelner of Springfield after initially appointing her, and another appointee for the position representing Southwest Missouri declined to accept the position. After her appointment was withdrawn, Gelner wrote a letter to members of the State Board of Education saying she had been pressured by the governor's office to vote at the board's September meeting to remove Commissioner of Education Margie Van Dieven and replace her with an out-of-state candidate supported by the governor. She says her nomination was withdrawn because she was not willing to support the immediate removal of Van Dieven as commissioner. MSBA Executive Director Melissa Randall says such pressure from the governor's office is troubling.
It is not unusual for a governor to express his or her position on public education to his individual, to the candidates that he intends to appoint to the state board. That's not unusual. What is unusual with this situation is that the information that's coming out is that they've taken an extra step, and not only have they shared their position on public education and inquired of the candidates if they share that position, but they've done this next step and are dictating personnel decisions.
Randall adds, it is essential that the State Board of Education maintain its independence.
We want to ensure that they're protected in terms of their ability to make independent decisions, that they can look at the evidence before them and make decisions on what's best for Missouri's children. That has been our legacy as a state. That's been something that all Missourians ought to be very proud of, that we put our children above politics, and we want to make sure that that stays in place, that we're not setting a dangerous precedent.
The new state board members are subject to confirmation by the Missouri Senate when it reconvenes in January. State board members serve staggered 8-year terms. No more than 4 members can belong to the same political party, and no more than 1 member can be from the same county or congressional district. The State Board of Education has considerable influence over education policy in the state, including the establishment of the state's accreditation and assessment systems. As the debate over school choice continues in Missouri and throughout the nation, it's important to remember there are an abundance of choice options for students within the public schools. A new report by the National School Boards Association's Center for Public Education finds public schools are far from the one-size-fits-all model critics claim. The report finds the broadest range of educational and extracurricular options exist within public schools. Those options include programs emphasizing the arts, career education, advanced placement courses, gifted and honors courses, and distance learning opportunities. The report also finds public schools are more likely to offer after-school programs and tutoring and enrichment activities. School choice advocates tend to focus on the choice of a school building, but that approach fails to recognize the number and range of options for students that are offered inside public school buildings. MSBA has been highlighting innovative programs in Missouri's public schools through our Stand Up for Missouri's Public Schools video series. Those stories are posted on the MSBA website. We're likely to see legislative proposals during the next session of the General Assembly that claim to expand choice for parents and students, including the expansion of charter schools statewide and legislation that would establish what are called education savings accounts. ESAs are a form of vouchers enabling taxpayer money to be spent with private schools that are not accountable to the public. The annual MSBA School Personnel Information Survey is now open. This survey collects information on the wages, salaries, and benefits of teachers and other school employees to help boards and administrators make fully informed personnel decisions. Member districts that complete the survey and submit their salary schedules and collective bargaining agreements by November 13th receive free access to the data collected. Make sure your district's information is included in this year's database. That's it for this month's edition of the MSBA Board Report. Thanks for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and so long from Columbia.
Okay, and Dr. Wheeler has just assured me that we are making sure we get our stuff in there so that we can then tap into all the other information that's given for those. Okay. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Sorry, what? Oh, I got ahead of myself. Superintendent report. Guess we'll get that first.
Try to be brief. A couple of follow-ups. Good evening. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight. A couple of follow-ups on the MSBA report. There is obviously a lot going on with the state board at the state level with our commissioner, and our Missouri Association of School Administrators has encouraged attendance at state board meetings just to make sure that we have representation and show our active support for our commissioner, who collectively we believe has done a very good job for our school, for our state, specifically for public education. So we'll be attending down there on the 30th. I believe it's 31st of October for the next meeting, and I think we have reached out to our deserter, Miss Scarborough, and she's offered to go out for ice cream with us, so we'll look forward to that. On a more serious note, the talk of open enrollment continues. School choice vouchers, the tax plans, and I want to make two very brief points on this. Number one, and most importantly, and I just received word today that there will be a briefing on this with leadership at Whiteman Air Force Base, and among many comments, my 2 points will be this. Most importantly, the way the impact aid formula works. There's a formula called the learning opportunity threshold, and among several factors that calculate that is the total percentage of military connected students as compared to the total enrollment of the school district. So for Knob Noster, we hover around 64% plus or minus. So I generalize that to 2 out of 3 students. So there are 2 things. Once you are above 50%, you receive heavily impacting funding for what we call our B2 monies for our roughly 1,000 students. So that's important. You have to hit 50% to receive the heavily impacted funds. But aside from the heavily impacted, what's important to note is that learning opportunity threshold factor. If our 1,000 students are, let's say tomorrow open enrollment happened and all 1,000, roughly 1,000 of our military connected students went to Warrensburg and joined Warrensburg schools, that Impact Aid money will not, the same amount of dollars from Impact Aid from the federal government will not follow those kids to the other district because their density of students will be lower. So what essentially will happen with open enrollment, if those students went partially or fully, we're going to leave federal dollars left on the table to support those military connected students. So that's an important concept. I'm happy to say that I was able to speak directly to the state board and the commissioner at the MSBA conference, and then we had our legislative folks in a different forum that mentioned that. So we're circulating that word around. However, we know that this is a big priority of our governor. So we want to be supportive of options for students, but we also want to make sure that we do our part to fully educate our legislators on what that means for Impact Aid. So us and Waynesville are two of about 30 heavily impacted school districts in the nation. So this is not a commonly understood or known formula. So we continue to get that word out. So that's point number one on Impact Aid. The second point that I want to make, I'm a mid-career guy, 15 years in education, and what I've seen in Missouri is a number of efforts that may be called one thing, but maybe really at the root of the purpose, maybe another thing. My opinion, when you look at prorated funding, when you look at decreases in state funding, when you look at increased accountability, when you look at no accountability for charters, and when you look at things like open enrollment and the diversion of public dollars, my opinion is, and I have reason to believe this, that it's a backdoor effort to try to consolidate. And when I brought this up publicly last time, I was told we don't use the C word in Jefferson City. And the reason is we don't use consolidation because you won't get elected. There will be a grassroots effort across Missouri's however many communities we have, 1,000 plus, to make sure that consolidation doesn't happen. But I can tell you, if open enrollment happens, it will force consolidation. That may not be a bad thing, but it's the way in which this will happen will not be good, because it will be based on individual choice. And my opinion is sports and other issues that maybe aren't top priority with educators, but maybe top priority with parents may come into play. And there will be decisions that are made for probably not the best reasons. So I just think we need to be very careful, and as we push down one lane towards open enrollment, I just think there needs to be a lot of discussion and a lot of due diligence given at the state level. So those are my two points. There are several other issues that I'll include to be selectively shared with the Air Force Base at their discretion. Okay, so that's my soapbox on open enrollment, vouchers, and school choice. Regarding the survey, Ms. Huntsman is on top of that, along with about 5 others. Occasionally she gets bored in her job, needs something to do, right? But that, jokes aside, that does provide good data. All right, on to my reports. This month was another busy month. Most notably, our auditors were in, and I'm pleased to report early to you that we had favorable feedback on our audit. They'll be here next month to present that formally, and we're very pleased. I want to say thank you to Ms. Huntsman, Ms. Palmer, Ms. Friedman, and Mr. Thering for their work in getting ready for the audit. I'm happy to say they completed their work a day early and had positive feedback on both the smoothness of the process as well as the hospitality of our team. As the board is aware, the district submitted an Impact Aid discretionary construction grant last month requesting $4 million to address current facilities issues at the high school, those including accessibility, safety concerns, and overcrowding in some spaces. The response to that is expected in early 2018. I did have the privilege to speak at the U.S. Capitol on September 26th during the NATO's conference. We had over 30 House and Senate offices represented and had favorable feedback on that. The purpose of that address was to requesting an increase from $17 million up to $100 million annually in the line item for discretionary impact aid construction projects. And we want that to be included in the new infrastructure bill that's going forward. I also had the opportunity to speak directly with Representative Vicky Hartzler and Senator Pamela McCaskill during my visit. They both sent their regards to our students here in Mount Malstrom at Whiteman Air Force Base and pledge their support. Last but not least, I want to express our appreciation to Mrs. Davis, Mrs. Walling, Mr. Bolton for their attendance at the annual MSBA conference. Also, thank you is extended to Ms. Davis and Dr. Rolfson and Mr. Foron for joining myself and our partners at Wendorf in presenting on collective bargaining. And I think the exact word I got from one of our MSBA representatives is they thought we should clone you as a board member. And I think I said something like she's one of a kind, something like that. But thank you for a very good job. Activities upcoming for this month are Base Community Council. We also have a couple of meetings in the next week with the Whiteman Community Collaboration, kind of wrapping up that program with Colonel Ely. And then we have a briefing with the Whiteman Area Leadership Council and Joe Driscoll on the current status and future of Whiteman Air Force Base. Enrollment numbers for the month. Mount Malstrom Elementary 389 with 96.42 attendance percentage. Mount Malstrom Middle School 477 at 96.02. Mount Malstrom High School 359, 96.04. Whiteman Elementary 324, 96.28. District total is 1549 with 96.19. Financially speaking, for month ending September 30, we had all funds balances of $12,916,341. Revenues to date, $5,477,110, which is 33.6 of anticipated. Expenditures, $2,546,887, which is 15.6% budget. Important to note in those balances is our first expected impact date for this fiscal year, which is 1.8 million. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Wheeler. It's amazing what 10 bucks behind your convention, right? Okay, thank you.
See what I here.
Next, we have the NAT presentation.
So, do you have anything for this evening, or?
What we're going to do starting next month is highlight different elementary and middle school programs, because a lot of times we all know what's going on in high school. Like, I can tell you right now that the boys cross country team got second place at conference, like, because that was already out. But a lot of times we don't get to know or see what's going on with our littler people. So in November, we'll highlight Whiteman, and the next month, Haley, and after that, middle school, so I'm not too good with that. But as you know, it's not a mystery. There are great things that happen all over the place in this district involved. Choose one from the buildings to highlight each other.
Thank you, that's great. Now, I would like a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I have a question for them. The Warrensburg Career Center Consortium Agreement. Explain to me a little bit about the $21,582. Was that paid by this district to Warrensburg, or is that out of a funding agreement with the state, or how does that work?
So that is our Perkins money, which supports the career education. And when we enter into an agreement with this consortium, which all of the Johnson County districts have done, then they basically apply that money is directed from Perkins to the Career Center. This is interesting. Historically, as the board is aware, we have partnered with the Warrensburg Area Career Center. this year, we are reaching out and kind of doing a pilot program with State Fair Community College, and it appears to be going well. So at this point, I think we stick with this plan, but we may look for other opportunities, continue to look for other opportunities and maybe redirect that funding, or at least split it equitably based on where our students attend. On top of this Perkins money, we of course pay a per student tuition rate per semester, about $2,000. But we're looking at options and also looking at what opportunities we may be able to offer here in-house to try to keep those opportunities in front of our students.
So we sending students up there for that also?
We are. So the way that this historically worked is we do our underclassmen classes here, and we send those over, some of the advanced classes over to them to attend. So we kind of serve as a feeder program, but frankly, we're not getting a lot of interest in that on our feeder program or over at WAC. So that's something we are to continue to discuss.
So how many kids do we have attending that program?
I think we have, was it 14? I believe it was 14.
How many do we have in other places?
3.
Well,
Then we still have, we're busing our kids up there to want to go to that program. Are the ROTC kids?
Yes, we currently have over 100 out of district ROTC students that are coming to Malagasy High School.
Is there an equitable distribution of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 schools for the career center? Is there an equitable student slots, or how are they deciding on the positions?
I can relate to you what was shared with me verbally, and the answer I received was yes, that it is equitable. I would like to look a little bit further back and just see what our history is in terms of attendance. But I can't answer that with, and I can't put documentation in front of you to answer that, so I'm just relaying what was shared. But that's a very good question.
I guess one of the questions I have is, when you're comparing apples to apples, you say the State Fair program versus the Warrenburg program, let's compare nursing real quick. You know, the placement over in Sedalia seems to be really high in the nursing program. And I don't know where it's at in Warrenburg. So, you know, long term, is it, you know, these kids seem, I believe they get a 2-year certificate for attending an actual program through State Fair, which includes the college credits towards, you know, the educational side of it. Is that any more beneficial than going to Warrenburg's program on the nursing side? You would think it would be because of the college credits involved.
Let me look into that and see if we can bring you.
Kind of putting that out there for information.
I think on the nursing side, though, if you're talking about like LPNs, is that what you're talking about? Are you talking about CNAs?
The 2-year program at State Fair through the college, as opposed to the program that's over in Warrenburg.
The LPN program, I know over there is a selective process. You have to test into it and so forth. It's not school kids per se that are in that program. Now, I don't know if they offer like a CNA program or something like that, but I know the licensed practical nursing program is run through there also, but it's a selective process.
I don't know that. About it.
My wife, the only reason I know that is my wife went through that program 100 years ago.
One of the hardest things for a board and really for school district administration board team one of the hardest things to do is selectively abandon some of the practices that have been in place for a long time.
Yeah, I'm not saying.
Well, I think they're good questions, and I think we need to, collectively, if we have the level-headedness to look at outcomes and results and interest and job opportunities, the concept of selective abandonment is one that the best boards and the best school districts look at. Whether you're talking cursive writing, or you're talking changing nursing programs, or, replacing, maybe you offer robotics in place of family and consumer sciences or home ec. Really, at the end of the day, we've got to set our emotions and maybe some of our experiences aside and say, what can we best put in front of our kids to give them the best opportunity to go out and have the best future, best job, best life. And it's sometimes the emotions of those decisions that get in the way. But I think you guys have posed good questions. We'll look into it, and just the concept of what you're saying is one that I encourage the board to keep looking at.
Well, we don't know overall program cost for one versus another, and maybe we're not comparing apples to apples.
We can find out.
But and the other thing is I don't know, but it would appear that their programs are the same programs that they had last year, and the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before that. And I don't see their programs expanding with the expanding technology. And I haven't looked into it hard, but just from what I've been following with it, it just seems to me like the Career Center is not expanding in any type of direction. They're staying with status quo in their teaching and their programs. So, and that's something else that we might consider also.
Thank you.
I concur, sir. Thank you.
Well, thank you for continuing to look for the best places for our kids for that.
Yes,
We ask you to continue to do that.
Well, I don't want to prolong this, but I visited Stalls last week. Sorry, Goose. That's not a good Air Force trip. Anyway, we went over and did a walkthrough of Stalls, and I was really amazed at what opportunities for students that are interested in manufacturing and industry and quality and all the other pieces. There's a great opportunity there, and it would be neat to find a way to pipeline those students that have that aptitude into local business, which is similar to what we're doing. We're looking into aviation and flight with our ROTC program, because it kind of makes sense. If we can find an aptitude here and get them headed down that path, we can hopefully hire locally and retain locally to the extent that it's possible. So it takes time, but we're looking at some of those things, and I think you guys are bringing up very valid points.
Well, thank you for doing that.
I've got one little thing here. I should have attended to this one. Of the comments and correspondence. School board. I have a letter I received today from Mr. Jackson from UCM, and they changed up the wording in this letter I've received him for a number of years. And I took care of it in the past. I communicated with the school administration and the local youth athletic activities. And what it is Youth Day, basically, what they used to call it at UCM for the football game. And this year it's on November 4th, so this is kind of short notice. Playing Northeastern State, which is Oklahoma. And the game is 1 o'clock, Saturday, November 4th. And the change is that it used to say youth activities. And did not include school in the phrase or the terms. Now it does include. It says, we hope that your group can join UCM athletics for our football youth and school day on Saturday, November 4th. So that basically, I would gather together between 200 and 300 tickets as a rule every year and distribute those to all of the youth, including the middle school and high school teams. And this is for, now, I'm gonna call Bob tomorrow, but the way I understand it, this is for every individual involved in sports activity, including the teachers, cheerleaders, anyone supporting the sport, a part of the sport. So, what I need is a head count from all the youth coaches and from the school, of course, for the different individuals who want to take advantage of this. And it's general admission seating, and I will have the passes prior to the game. You can distribute it to the coaches or wherever they want. Just passing that down the line here.
Thank you, Tom.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I got just a few questions. I've been kind of watching it and seeing, kind of waiting for the first quarter to kind of see if things were just anomalies. There's several accounts that are not budgeted for foreseen expenditures. Over 50.
Is your mic on?
Yes, it is. And so that's kind of concerning to me. We're early in the budget process, and we're seeing that. And there's also several accounts that are over budget already, that have budgeted accounts. Some of them might be one-time things, I don't know. But if we continue on our path, it's going to be, this year-to-date, we have almost $250,000 in red. And what is budgeted and not budgeted. And that would equate to somewhere around $3 million. It definitely continues. That is concerning me. It won't look bad this year because we have the impact date. Knowing that and where it should have been last year, we already had a small shortfall in those are concerning to me. Just the trend is concerning. So I'm going to look into that.
I know we have a budget amendment that needs to occur to make some shifts within certain accounts, and we do now have our audit out of the way, so that can move into a priority position.
Well, I thought some of it could be that it was on a different account. Everything that has been budgeted, like account-wise, has had something charged. So there is no budget amounts with zero expenditures today. And so that to me raises a red flag. These are all new. I don't know that for sure, but I don't know what's behind it. I guess I would like to watch that trend, and if you could come back and report back on that. If it is a trend, what that is.
We'll do, and with that budget amendment, we should be able to sort out. We'll look at those. You said 50
line items. There's over 50.
I'll look into that.
Any other questions? I need a second. All in favor? Aye. Approval of bills. I need a motion to approve the bills as presented. All in favor? Aye. Approval of bills requiring extension. I need a second. All in favor? Aye. Extensions? I need a motion for the board to approve the surplus property.
I make a motion to approve the surplus property.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Impact aid overview. This is for discussion and information only.
This is just an annual repeat of information regarding our impact aid. I don't really plan to go through this in detail, but wanted to have it here available and kind of back at the top of the list. I did want to scroll through here and see. It talks about that learning opportunity threshold, I don't recall. Here it is. So this is that what we refer to as a lot, and to determine a school district's lot percentage, you add basically the percent of federal students in average daily attendance plus the percent of the maximum payment is of the district's total current expenditures. So basically, what's our max payment as compared to our total expenditures, and that gets your learning opportunity threshold. You can't go over 100, but essentially, this is the factor I was talking about. If our students are spread out due to open enrollment over multiple districts, that same 1,000 students in Warrensburg is only going to be probably, let's say, so that would take them up to 4,800 plus the maybe 400 that they already have to 500. That's still only going to be about 30% of their total enrollment. So this percent go from that same 1,000 students move our percent to 60, it moves their percent to 30. So that's going to factor into that impact aid funding, and that's what I'm going to try to articulate to our base leadership and to our legislative decision makers, because this is not known by that many people. And then on top of that, the heavily impacted funds, which I talked about.
So their lot percentage doesn't change to their
No, their lot percentage would change based on the percent of military connected students as compared to their entire enrollment. But because we're a smaller district, we're at 60%, the same kids is only going to move theirs to 30, and those kids they would not be eligible to receive heavily impacted money. So it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. The other side of that conversation, we continue to promote our programs like AP, like robotics, like cybersecurity, like our OTC, so that if open enrollment does hit, hopefully we'll be on the receiving end, or at least have a swap of some kids and stay consistent with where we've been. So that's really all I have to say on that. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you. Program evaluation for federal programs. I need a motion to approve this.
Motion to approve the program evaluation.
All in favor? Aye. I need a motion to approve the Parents as Teachers program evaluation as presented.
Make a motion to approve the parents and teachers evaluation program.
I second the motion.
All in favor? Aye. Need a motion to approve the critical thinking program evaluation as presented.
I make a motion to approve the critical thinking program evaluation.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Need a motion to approve the English learners program evaluation as presented.
How large of a program is that in this district?
That question probably for Dr. Collins.
So we have those numbers,
Yeah.
2, 4, 5, 6, 10.
19, we currently servicing 19 students. We have 6 at the middle school, 3 at K&E, and 10 at Whiteman. We have 2 students that are on monitor status, 1 at the high school, 1 at Whiteman. So we have 19 that we're serving and 2 on monitor.
Oh, as long as you're not bothered with it.
Still need a motion?
Make a motion to approve the program for English learners as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. This is for information only, summer school historical overview.
Just wanted to take a little bit of time to review. I have some good news tonight on the next 2 items and some not so good. So I want to start with the good news, which is our summer school. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, but a couple of things to keep in mind in terms of overview and goals of summer school. First and foremost, and primarily it's about extended learning for enrichment and remediation for our students. And we've had pretty good success in the last several years in drawing our students in. But another subcomponent of that is summer school also provides opportunities for extended contracts and income for our teachers and other instructional and support staff. So that's also brings in additional revenues that we can distribute out through our employees and circulate through the community. The district operates summer school in-house this last fiscal year for 17 as well as 16 and did outsource the last couple of years before that. The last 2 years, teachers developed our own summer school curriculum and units of instruction. And both of our last 2 years operated with positive revenues financially. Details on the program this last year, we ran a 19-day summer school with approximately 140 hours. We had an enrollment of 788 students with an average students in attendance at 651 a day. Our average daily attendance was 82.5%. Teacher to student ratio was 22:1. Now, that is not calculated out based on attendance, I don't believe, so it probably was a little lower than that. But we do want to stress to our teachers and our principals that they did a very good job of filling those classes and holding us accountable for our target at around 20. Teacher stipend for the year was $39.25. We had 3 principals with a stipend of $4,400, and our net revenues after bills were paid was over $100,000, and that's state-only funding. That did not include some additional funding that we would get from Impact Aid. Student incentives were provided again the last 2 years in an effort to drive attendance. We did offer attendance pay for perfect and near perfect attendance on a sliding scale. We offered field trips as well as prizes and giveaway items. Our attendance results in state revenues. These are estimated based on a formula, but you can see where our profits have gone, where our revenues have gone over the last several years. You can see in 15 we had a high of about just short of 400,000, but in that year, we actually went quite a few more hours and more days than we did this last year. So that's what our revenues look like. Expenditures by object. This kind of shows where the breakdown was of our expenses with certified salaries, non-certified salaries, benefits, purchase services. You can see when we outsourced where that was, and then our total. There are a couple things here on this slide that I want to point out. First of all, that summer journeys, when we use that, those were coded in arrears. So those were actually funded, or excuse me, they were paid a year late in these years. So we actually moved those back to where they belonged. And then salaries over here, back in 15, those salaries for summer school were split between 2 fiscal years. The last 2 years, last year we were able to get that all coded in. The last 2 years we were able to code our summer school into the appropriate fiscal year, but we had carryover in 16 from 15. So we've made some adjustments there to code it in the right spot. So that brings you to our overall revenues and expenditures. We're pleased to say again that we had over 100,000 in state fund surplus revenues this year. We had about 30 last year. We deficit spent the 2 years prior. Had a little surplus here, and then back in 12 we really offered nothing in 12-13. You can see the differences. So just a little bit of historic information. That's a success. We also had a very positive year in terms of food service with some very good income and revenue there. So just not really an action item, but just wanted to put that together for your review. Next year we'll probably stay with the same program. We know we'll run that in-house. We'll stay with primarily the same teacher stipend and teacher target at 20 students per class. We will look at the length of day and number of days. We did get a little bit of feedback on that, so we'll probably survey and see how we want to structure those days. But otherwise, it looks like we're on the right track with summer school.
Thank you, Dr. Wheeler. Next up is transportation historical overview. This is for information purposes only.
So I did say I had good news that I just shared, right? Okay. So this is probably for first read and really just a brief overview for the board to consider. Before we get into any details, I went back and pulled historical data back to about 2001 just to try to get a history of the program, the history of what's been being provided in terms of revenues from the state, and it's very dismal. And we're going to talk about some of the factors, but generally the state over the last decade or so has consistently continued to decrease funding for transportation. And what they're doing when you hear that the state is fully funding the formula, really what they're doing is robbing transportation in other areas, pulling that money into that formula and saying that it's fully funded. And while it may be more fully funded, the whole amount of dollars that are coming in to support our schools is going down, and they're taking from places like transportation. So that is what it is. We're going to go through some details here just for your information. This is our application for aid for last fiscal year. We transported about, on average, 975 students a day. I think we're up to about 1125 this year, 1123, something like that on average. We transported about 35 days that were ineligible last year. We operated for 170 days plus summer school at 19 days, which isn't included in this. Our non-disabled student route miles, 144,000. Students with disability route miles, we did about 38,000 in-house, and we outsourced for about 14,000. So our total eligible route miles were 196,000 miles last year. We also had ineligible miles of 7,700. Non-route miles for field trips and activity trips of about 43,000, and in total ineligible miles of 51,000. So that's what we turned into the state to claim our funding. Our fleet overview, as you know, we purchased 2 buses last year. I think the most recent bus before that was a 2015. And if you look down through our fleet, I think we have right here a 2002 model that's still in operation. So that's a 15-year-old bus that's on the road. Over here is the years of depreciation. Those days where we could depreciate out a bus in full over time no longer exist because that factor is prorated. Here's our facility overview with depreciation. We do still have some time left on our depreciation schedule with that. Again, we're not getting a whole lot of money at this $1,900 for depreciation on our facility. One silver lining, we can look back in 15. I was not able to pull the gallons quickly, but I did put our overall fuel cost. That's come down significantly. As you know, we did bring that fuel on site, and we believe that's made a tremendous impact. Plus, we've had declining fuel costs, so that's a factor as well. So before we get into the bottom line financially, I want to preface this a little bit. As mentioned, the board knows we did purchase 277 conventional buses last year at a cost of $171,000. We also did install 4-head cameras on all buses at $25,000. So we roughly had about a $200,000 capital outlay that we typically don't see in our budget. We also had some increases, and I just wanted to highlight those. Our supply costs went up. After these cameras were deducted, we went up by about $52,000. We believe that can be equated to the fact that our fleet is aging. It's taking more man hours and more supplies to keep that up, which the board is aware from prior conversations. Salaries went up by about $55,000. Insurance went up by $23,000, and purchase services went up by about $23,000. So we had an increase in those line items of about $154,000. So our total expenditures, the way that breaks out across our program, certified salary $62,000. So what that is we were able to code some of our administrator salaries, mine, Mr. Coron's, some of our principals. We do bus duty, and the reason we do that is to include that in our overall efficiency factor. So we have that coded. Our non-certified salaries for our drivers and support staff was $370,000. Benefits $154,000. Purchase services, again, if you look up at this, you guys can't see my mouse, sorry. If you look in the purchase service line item, you can see that we contracted out about $40,000 in contracted disabled. So that's sending some of those individual students to specialty schools out of district. We talked about supplies going up, capital for the bus purchases, and then our total cost was $971,571. As you compare that over time, you can see again there was a significant increase from last year. We equate about $200,000 of that to those capital outlays. Those are not something that we've been seeing every year, but when you don't see those, that's what leads to a depleted fleet that's aging and hard to upkeep. So if we continue on this course, we can probably expect to see something closer to this $900,000 amount every year. If you go back, look back through, I think the last time that we had a 2-bus purchase was back in 2012, and you can see that there's still a significant difference with overall cost. Part of those, the main cause of the cost increase on our people is additional routes that are being required to service several of our special needs students. Revenue history, there's really only one source that we're seeing, and that's state funding. You can see over the last 15 or so years, that's been cut in half. Not that it was ever very great to start with. I think we did 200,000 back for 5 years or so, and then it's steadily fallen off. And that will continue to go down, is the anticipation. So the net cost is listed right here in terms of the cost that's above and beyond what the state provides in reimbursement for transportation. Major transportation issues on the horizon. We've had a job posted for the last maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and we've had, at this time, no candidates that I can bring forward for recommendation. Finding drivers here locally continues to be a challenge. We're looking at new ways, maybe even talking about doing incentives for referrals if someone refers in a driver, but we're trying to get that out. We've had our bus parked down in town with a sign up, which actually worked really well a year ago. It hasn't worked as well this year to bring in new folks. We also have an aging fleet. It's increasing the cost of ownership to be maintained. Along those lines, it's also increasingly difficult to maintain a high level of success on our state inspections. The new Dollar Tree facility that should come online within the next year is going to increase the demand for CDL drivers in the region, and we're already low on supply of drivers. And then, as mentioned, the fleet replacement, it's been neglected over the last decade, and we definitely need some help to put additional outlay to support our buses. Wrapping up on a positive note, we have some fantastic people in our transportation department that do a wonderful job for our kids and for our school district every single day. There are some that are worth their weight in gold in terms of what they provide, and we look for some ways to recognize them, but certainly we want to thank them for their service, and just probably not the most upbeat presentation you've heard from me, but it's kind of the overview of what's happening in that department and something we definitely need to think about.
Any questions?
Well, one of the things I have to say is the transportation for summer school is fund. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So we're at $869,000 a year is what it costs to operate this bus school. I mean, we're in the same situation as a lot of districts. We do supply the buses for the summer school. We made $104,000 off the summer school, so we probably ought to take that off the overall cost of the negative there, based on the fact that we ran those buses for summer school.
I think that's a good idea.
So, we're not making any money anywhere, we're spending money.
Right.
As far as the buses go and the overall quality of our buses, if you take the time to walk through a parking lot when there's football, soccer, or anything else going on for that matter, some of these schools show up driving junk. And they don't have their district's name on these buses. I paid attention to the way some of these other buses look at some of these other districts, and they're not driving Cadillacs, they're driving Chevettes. I mean, these things, they're not showing up with fancy buses. Some do, but it's not the buses that are typically owned by contractors. So I don't know how we're going to put a price on how much it should cost to operate the buses district-wide for all of our kids, but it's the nature of the beast. I mean, I know you can look at outside sources, and I went online and looked at problems other districts have had throughout our country, and it's just a wide spectrum of everything you can possibly think of. I mean, we have talked about it in the past. If you go with the outside sourcing for busing, you're going to run into other problems. Warrenburg and Sedalia, they have their share of issues as far as the quality of drivers, trying to keep drivers, trying to, hire and retain drivers. And that's no different than the situation we're in, because these other communities either have signs posted all over and everywhere you go, including Casey's and every convenience store in the area. So it's just a tough business to be in when you talk about transportation. It's good to see where we're at.
It is. It's not obviously not, like I said, the most upbeat report, but it's facts. And the other fact is, right here on this fleet overview, this is the fleet that this board and this administration inherited. And this is something that, you know, has progressed over time. And really that outlay last year of 170,000 was, you had to go back, we bought one in 15, bought a van here, but you had to go back to, you know, back to 12 to see where we did a year where we bought 2 units and one, and a couple years there where they didn't buy any. So it's happened over time. We've got to think about before we, you know, where we're going, and before we buy any buses, I've got to be able to find a good quality driver to put into those buses. And like I said, we're trying to be creative and maybe look at some way of incentivizing referrals. And maybe, I know the board had approved the sign-on bonus in the past that we can throw out, and hopefully that will help a little bit.
Maybe we could park one of them buses out there next door in that big, clear, nice green field, and maybe there'll be more visibility.
Could we do that?
Yeah, bring it on out.
You won't sell it, will you?
I'll get out there and wave up and down in front of it if I have.
All right.
Is there any capital buses this year in your budget?
I believe there is. I'll double check. I think so. I don't know off the top of my head.
Have we, I assume, entertained an after-school program, appropriate funds and perhaps work with the students and have an initiative that would benefit the parents where they can pick them up at an after-school location, and we can maybe cut back on our routes?
I've really thought about that since I arrived. We're one of the few schools that really doesn't offer that after school. One of the things that I've said along the way is we want to consider our local businesses that offer before and after school care. We have some very successful, very supportive local businesses that offer that care, and we really need to be careful on.
Well, no, I want to work with them. That's why I said
Right.
create funds through the parents and through the school.
To
Work with the parents, school, and the program, after school program, where it would be, you know, beneficial to all parties involved, and nuisance kind of on the back burner of our bus driving situation, not having enough drivers.
Great idea. There's some dynamics I'll talk to you about in private, just on thoughts. But again, those, right or wrong, those local businesses are something that's at the forefront of my mind in terms of any potential negative impact on what they've done for our community, for our school district. But hopefully we can find, I mean, what you're saying makes good sense.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rivers.
Is there any federal aid?
Not that I know of.
Are you advertising on Whiteman Air Force Base?
We have done that, I think last year with Mrs. Munley, I see her back there. We haven't this year. That's one of the places we want to try to get out and do that. We didn't get much traction in the past on that, right or wrong. I had one airman I thought we had hired, and he's going back to college. So we'll keep shaking that bush a little bit.
I would direct.
Oh,
Well, I would offer that there are potentially some options for, if there were some creative hours that we do, so morning and afternoon, split shifts, part-time work might be something that our active duty airmen could pursue. That'd be fantastic, but that's something we can talk about details, kind of take that message back to our, because we have folks that are, one of our recent achievements is our ground transporters have worked with the appropriate authorities, Department of Transportation, get Google certification so that the government
commercial driving program is now being recognized by the state of Missouri, and we're doing commercial driver's license equivalency, so it's a full certification, which obviously we're expecting to prepare them as they're separated from the military, but also gives them some benefits while they're still on active duty. So that would be obviously a group of folks that if they have the skills that they're looking for, it would be a matter of figuring out whether we can work around their primary duty hours. And there's also, as I mentioned earlier, like the generations where we go in and extend shifts, then there would have to be some contingency plans for when those are not available. But that's something we can actually present to our folks and see if there's interest, if there's some options, flexibility.
When you talk about flexibility there, you've got folks that work out there all night long, and if somebody drove with us in the morning, maybe somebody else could drive that after.
We thought about that too. Thought about that with some of our employees as well, but let's talk and maybe get some traction. That finder speed didn't get your attention. Back to the robotics club like that.
Any more questions? Thank you, Dr. Wheeler.
Make a motion to adjourn executive session pursuant to RC Law 610.021 313.2.
A second.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And we will meet in there at 7:30. Thank you.